Straight all day.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. Then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to finish when you have a lead. When you have an advantage, when you have the lead, how do you finish the game off and make sure you complete the job? How do you finish the task off? We'll get into why this is a topic and, of course, how to do it in a moment. But first, let me tell you all that I have a daily motivation text that I send out every single day for free to everyone who's in my text community. If you want to receive that text, it's very easy to do. Just text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. I'll send you that every day. Message that's going to keep you focused, sharp, and on point for the day ahead. And again, the number again, 305-384-6894. And you can also respond to any one of those texts that you ever receive from me, and you'll be talking directly to me. Now, this topic here today, I have a few episodes on finishing in the archive of this show. And again, I told you at workonyourgamepodcast.com. You can get the full archive of the show and find any episode that I've ever referenced here or any ones that I haven't referenced that you didn't know about. But I would suggest that you check out episode 943 when I talked about killer instinct, because that's what this episode is about here today. It's when you have an opportunity to finish the job off, how do you actually finish that job? And this is kind of a paradox of what I talked about in episode number 2094 when I talked about how to fight back in life, and why when you find yourself in a situation where you might be losing and an opponent might have a lead on you, why you need to keep fighting is because many people just simply don't have the killer instinct. Many people don't know how to finish. Many people don't know how to finish a job off when they do find themselves having a lead. So if you just keep fighting and force them to finish you, you will learn very quickly that many people just don't have the ability to finish. They don't have the mindset. They don't have the mentality or the fortitude to finish you off. So if you just keep fighting and force them to do it, you'll find that they can't, and you may end up coming back and winning in that situation. So listen to episode 2094 as well. But today is about when you're the person in the lead, how do you actually finish things off? So it's about completing that job when you see you have an opportunity to complete the job. And it's not just about necessarily in competition, but just any opportunity, period. How do you make sure that you are finishing? You know, in the basketball world, one of the things that we talk about as players all the time, coaches and trainers as well, that you do a nice move on your opponent and you have an open shot or you got an open lane to the basket, you got to make sure you finish. If you do a nice move on your defender, but then you miss the open jump shot, then the move doesn't count for much. I mean, you did a nice move, you might get some reaction from the crowd, but if you didn't score the basket, then it doesn't really affect the outcome of the game. Or you get a nice move to get an open lane to the basket, then you miss the layup, or you try to dunk it and you miss, then you didn't get any points for it. And the object of the game is to put the ball in the basket, not to miss the basket. So let's get into this so we don't walk on these points anymore. Point number one. Topic again today is how to finish when you find yourself with a lead or an opportunity. Number one, the majority of the most valuable things that we want in life, the things that we want and need, things that we wake up every day and go to work and strive for, that we put on our vision boards, that we write down on our goals list. The reason why we're at work, if you're at work right now or you're getting ready to go to work or you're on your way home from work, you must be willing to be aggressive in order to get them, to have them, and to keep them. Everybody right now who is at work, or you're on your way to work, or you are on break from work, or you are coming home from work, or you're supposed to be working right now, but instead you listen to the Work on Your Game masterclass. Any of you who's working somewhere that you really wanted to work, like you really like this job that you have, you really like the position that you're in, you really like the role that you occupy right now, did you have to be aggressive in order to get that position? Do you have to remain aggressive to continue having that position and to maintain that position? I would think so. Now, if you're working somewhere that you will be happy to get out of there, And I worked at many jobs like that. I worked at CVS's, Pizza Huts, Friendly's, movie theaters. Those kind of jobs, no, I didn't have to really be aggressive to get them. Actually, sometimes I did have to be a little bit aggressive to get them. But no, I'm not really I'm not about to go down. I'm not about to, fight to the death to keep those kind of jobs when I had roles like that. But the jobs that I really wanted, like being a pro athlete, like the position that I occupy now as an entrepreneur, I'm going to be aggressive in order to keep this position, to keep my status, to keep my title, and to advance myself and to move myself forward. Most of these positions, everybody, are not going to simply be handed to you. There's something that you need to do in order to get them. For instance, right, I get a lot of athletes, ball players coming to me every now and then. It used to happen a lot more when I was more actively just talking about basketball exclusively, but I still get it happening. So I get a ball player who will come to me and they'll say something like, Dre, do you have any connections, or do you have any contacts, or do you know an agent, or do you know a team that could help me? This is the player talking who's reaching out to me, player X, that could help me get on playing professional basketball overseas, or playing on a semi-pro team in the USA, or playing in the G League, which is the NBA's minor league system. And I used to go out and explain to players that it's a ridiculous thing to ask, but then I made enough content, whether through books or articles or videos, that now I don't have to say that anymore. Now I can just either send them a link, or nowadays, usually the last person who asked me this, it was a couple days ago actually, from when I'm recording this, a player asked me a question just like that. And all I did was send him a link to my book called The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, which is this book that I have right here behind me, that explains to players what exactly you need to know and what process. Here it is right here for those of you who don't know about this book. You're a ball player, you can get this at balloverseas.com. What process you need to follow to get yourself on playing professional basketball overseas. The reason I'm bringing that up is to help you understand that a role like that kind of job, where you're trying to get into the 1% of people in your industry, nobody's going to just hand you that job. Not even somebody who already has it. And most of the time, because they can't just hand you that job. It was that easy to just get a position that you did not work for, you don't have to work for. Somebody's going to give it to you just because you asked them, especially a person who you don't know. And most of the times people reaching out to me are people who I do not know. There's no connection, there's no relation. You think I could just make a phone call and just get you a job just because? Even though I don't know you, if I was able to just hand somebody a position if I was able to just hand somebody a position just based off a phone call or an email or a text message, well, one thing I'll guarantee you, I'm giving it to somebody that I know. There's going to be some kind of relationship that I have with that individual, or I'm going to charge them for it in some way, shape, or form. They're going to give me something in order for me to make that so easy for them. I mean, this is business. So a random person just asking another random person to just hand them something that so many other people are striving and struggling and hustling to get is a ridiculous proposition. But I often get these questions, and some of you, maybe in your line of work, you may get these kind of ridiculous propositions, people just thinking that you can just hand them something, or that you would just hand them something, even if you can, just because they reached out. Usually doesn't work like that. Again, any of you who's in a position right now that you really wanted to be in and that you really worked hard to get, was it easy for you to get it? And is it easy for anybody else to just walk in there and just get that position? Probably not. Doesn't mean you couldn't make it easier for somebody since you're already on the inside, but it ain't going to be easy. Now, the reason why I'm sharing that is for you to understand that this requires a level of aggression. It requires a level of force. It requires a level of intentionality. And this is not to say necessarily that you need to take anything from another person in order to get that position. It doesn't mean that you need to be overly competitive necessarily. In other words, like, you don't have to make it about you against another individual. And it definitely doesn't mean you need to violate anybody's rights or your own ethics or morals. But it does mean that you have to be willing to be assertive and forceful in grabbing what you want. Because if we look at the definition of the word aggressive, and we talked about being aggressive in several episodes of this show, specifically in episode 1223. The title is literally "Be Aggressive" with an exclamation point. In episode 742, if you're not going to be aggressive, get the hell out of the way. In episode 420, getting aggressive to make shit happen. So if you haven't listened to those, you know what to do. They're linked down below in the show notes. Definition of aggressive is pursuing one's aims and interests forcefully, sometimes unduly so. That's the full definition. If you have interests or aims that you are not willing to pursue forcefully, you're not willing to really go after them in an aggressive way, then I would suggest that you accept the fact that you may end up not having them. You may end up never reaching them if you're not willing to be aggressive in order to get them. Most people hear that definition that I said, pursuing your aims forcefully, sometimes unduly so. In other words, sometimes you might go too far. And they only pay attention to the second part of the definition, that unduly part, and they don't pay attention to the first part. And it's people's fear of appearing that maybe they're too aggressive, that maybe they're going too hard, they're trying too hard to get to their outcome. People's fear of that and just what other people might think of them, because even if somebody thinks that you're going too hard, what's the penalty for that? That's not a crime. Nobody can call the cops on you for going too hard after what you want. People's fear of that possibility keeps them from doing what they need to do to get what they want to have in life. And then they come up with a convenient excuse. Usually it's not that, even though that's the real reason. They come up with a convenient excuse that sounds good for why they don't have what they want in life, because they're unwilling to be aggressive. Point number 2, today's topic once again is how to finish when you have an opportunity. Number 2, most people are by definition average. Does everybody agree with that? That by definition, most people are average. I mean, the very word says it. And actually, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing for me to be even asking you the question, because it's just a logical fact that most people are average. That's what average means. So the reason why most people are average, and this is what the part I want you to get, because I hope that if you're listening to a show called Work on Your Game, that you're not hoping to be average. That's not your aim. Because if your aim is to be average, I'm going to help you out. You don't need to listen to the show. You could just keep living your life by default, and you'll become average without even trying. But the reason why most people are average is because most people live life by default. Like I just said, whatever happens to them, they just accept it and they just leave it as it is. Whatever happens, they just go with that. And whatever direction the wind blows, whatever way life decides to push them, they just end up going there, and they don't do anything to shape their own circumstances. And if you allow this to happen often enough, you will become just as average as most other people are in life. Now, here's the thing. There are some situations in your life that are going to suck no matter what you do. In other words, sometimes in life you're going to have to eat that shit sandwich, and no matter how hard you try to avoid eating the shit sandwich, you still have to eat it. Talked about that in episode 1663. All right, what is your favorite flavor of shit sandwich? Just some situations in life that you don't want to deal with, that you will have no choice but to deal with, even if you try not to deal with them. All right, this is just how it is. There are other situations in life that are just excellent. Some situations are just going to be amazing, even though you didn't even do anything to make the situation amazing. Sometimes in life you're just going to get easy situations handed to you, and all you got to do is just open the door or just say yes, and things are just going to work out for you perfectly. Now, here's what I want you to understand. Everyone who's listening to me right now has faced and dealt with both of these circumstances multiple times over in your life. Everyone here, if you're a salesperson, you've dealt with some prospects that you're trying to sell to that no matter what you did, they were not going to buy anything. Everyone had that happen before, right? And any of you who's ever tried to get a job, you've been in situations where you apply for a job, no matter what you said, no matter how perfect your resume, they were not going to hire you for the job. Everyone's faced this. And every one of us, if you're in sales, I'm just using sales as an example, you've been in situations where somebody just was going to buy anything that you sold, no matter what it was, no matter how much it costs. All right, those were the easy sales. Again, any of you who works in sales, and we're all in sales on some level, have all had this happen. You had people who were just ready to do whatever you said, no matter what it was, no matter how outlandish, it wasn't outlandish to them, but no matter how grandiose your ask, they were willing to say yes to it. They were ready and willing to say yes. And we've all had those situations. We've all had the ones that were impossible and all the ones that were super easy. And here's what I want you to understand. Both of those situations are on the far ends of the bell curve. If any of you doesn't know what a bell curve is, just Google it real quick. You'll see a picture of it, and I guarantee you've probably seen it before. So a bell curve is there are extremes on one end of a situation, and there are extremes on the other end. And most of the situations, most of the circumstances, though, are in the middle. Not on the extremes of this end or extremes of that end. So we've all faced the extremes before, but most of our circumstances in life are somewhere in the middle. That's where the majority of situations and circumstances occur. So since most situations are in the middle of that curve, what does that mean? That means they could go either way. They could go your way and you get what you want. They could go the other way and you don't get what you want. So what makes the difference for people in life? The difference is not how many of the circumstances you face, because as I just said, and as you just confirmed, we have all faced situations that were impossible. No way we were going to win. You all faced situations that were easy, that we were guaranteed to win. But the majority of all of our situations are in the middle. They could go good, they could go bad. We could win, we could lose. So the differentiator is not the circumstances, everybody. The differentiator is you. You are the variable. You are the variable. Average people, let's take this further. Average people don't do anything to affect those situations that are in the middle. So whatever direction the wind is blowing, they either win or they lose, they get it or they don't get it based on the weather that day. Below average people, they do things or don't do things that allow the situations or make the situations worse. So they lose most of the time. Average people do nothing, so they win sometimes and they lose other times. And you know what the winners do? They do things or don't do things that make the situation better. So they win more often than they lose. Or the times that they win more than make up for in multiples the times that they lost. Above average people do things that make situations better. It is not the extremes that determine your life, folks. It is the situations in the middle, because those are what most of what your life is made up of. So my question then is, and this is a question for you to ask yourself, how are you affecting these situations or not affecting them? Successful people utilize their killer instinct, again, see episode 943, to turn circumstances in their favor. They use force, they use aggression, they go after what they want to turn things in their favor. They do not allow life to just have its way with them, or do not just allow the chips to fall where they may. When they can, they affect situations to their liking. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to finish when you have an opportunity in life. When you see that opening, how do you take it and do something with it? Number 3, I want you to forget most of the socialization that you've been taught. Most of the socialization that you've been taught has been teaching you to go along to get along. We talked about this in episode number 2020. Why do people go along to get along? I want you to forget most of that, because most of that is teaching you to be amenable, compromising, and otherwise average. That's what it leads to, is you becoming average. When you're already ahead of other people, do not become compromising. Do not take your foot off the gas. Do not relax and allow other people to catch up, or don't relax out of embarrassment that you're so far ahead of everybody else that maybe they're going to attack you for having more than them. And people absolutely will do this. When you're already ahead of other people, don't take your foot off the gas and ease up just because you're already winning. So when you're doing really well and getting ahead of your own projections, in other words, you predicted you would sell 5 widgets today, but you already sold 7. All right, don't relax. If you're an ambitious person, you probably will get mad at yourself when you do this. And I know of some ambitious people who do this, because I have people who tell me this all the time, that they set a plan. They say, I'm going to get to level 10 by 5 o'clock. They get to level 12 by 3 o'clock. So now they got 2 extra hours and they do nothing for the last 2 hours because, well, I'm already here. And then what happens is they start to create this habit of easing up, and this habit of relaxation, to the point that they're taking 2 steps forward, but then they take 2 more steps back, and they never seem to take advantage of the lead or the opportunity that they are able to create for themselves, because they allow themselves to ease up as soon as they see that they're doing better than what they expected to do. This is what people do all the time. This is a form of self-sabotage that ambitious people, highly functioning people, these are high performing individuals, they have this problem just as much as the average and below average people have it. It's just that they get to a level of achievement first, then they ease up. Whereas below average people don't even get the achievement and they ease up. And average people, they get close to the achievement and ease up. But everybody has this problem, no matter what level you are when it comes to performance. You get mad at yourself for doing this all the time. So my question is, who made these rules that you need to ease up just because you're already doing better than what you expected? You know who made these rules that you are following? Average people. You're following the rule. You're an above average person. You're a way above average individual. But what happens is when you perform above what you expected of yourself, you start adopting the rules of average people. So you're doing above average, but then you start acting like a below average person. And guess what happens? You get the results of a below average person. The big idea here is that when you're ahead, keep going. If you got the lead, keep running. There is no rule out there and no law that says you have to slow down so that other people can catch up. There's no rule that says you need to ease up off the gas just because you're doing better than everybody else. All right? What other people are doing is immaterial to you. Your baseline is not about, am I doing better than these people around me? Your baseline is, am I doing better than what I could be doing? Am I doing the best that I could do? Now, if that happens to be better than everybody else in the room, hey, great, congratulations. If it happens to be worse than everybody else in the room, great, congratulations. Your baseline is not other people. Your baseline is not your comparison to everyone else. Your baseline is your comparison to what you are capable of and what your potential is. While this, of course, logically makes sense, it is your emotional acceptance of this idea that will determine whether you apply it or not. Because I could talk about this from 20 different angles, but you had to accept it and actually use it. That's really what's going to make the difference. So my question is, how can you justify this concept in your own mind? That's really what you have to be able to do, because logically you can understand it. How can you emotionally justify this to yourself? Especially knowing that most of the people around you will not and do not understand it. Even if they did understand it, they would not accept it. And even if they accepted it, they probably would not apply it. So what are you going to do knowing that nobody around you is going to be much reinforcement for this idea? Well, there could be people around you who reinforce this idea. If you join my Bulletproof Mastermind or you work with me directly, we would be the people around you. But if you don't have that, most of the people around you, just by the law of probabilities, is because what I know about people, I'm pretty sure that most of the people around you will not understand, accept, or apply this, or all three. So what are you going to do? How are you going to move yourself to that action? Even though you're already doing even better than maybe what even you expected. This is an open question for you to really ponder and think about for the rest of the day today. Let's recap today's class, which is how to finish when you have a lead or an opportunity or an advantage. See episode 943 on Killer Instinct. Point number 1. Most of the valuable things we want in life, we must be willing to be aggressive to get them, to have them, and to keep them. Most of these things are not going to simply be handed to you. And it's not about you taking it from anyone else or violating any morals or anything like that. It's just about being assertive and forceful to grab what you want. So you look at the definition of the word aggressive, it means pursuing your aims and interests forcefully. And many people get so afraid of appearing too forceful to others, the socialization, that they keep themselves from being aggressive and thusly blocking themselves from even getting what they want. Point number 2, most people are by definition average. All right, this is just the definition of the word, that this is where most people fall. Some situations in life are going to suck. Some will be great. Most of them are in the middle. Average people do nothing to affect those situations. Below average people do things to make them worse. And above average people, that's you, they do things to make those situations better. It is not the things on the extremes that determine the outcomes of your life. It's what you do with those situations that could go either way. How many of those are you winning? Those are the ones that make the determination on how far you're going to go in life. Successful people utilize their killer instincts to turn circumstances in their favor. And point number 3, forget the socialization you've been taught by average people who will advise you to ease up and slow down, or they'll teach you through demonstration to ease up and slow down when you are already ahead of everybody else. When you're already ahead, do not follow what average people do. Don't become average after you did all these things to achieve at an above average level. That makes no sense. Do not adopt average mindsets and average behaviors after you already made yourself into an above average individual. The big idea here is that when you're ahead, keep going. There's no rule that says you have to slow down so that everybody else can catch up, or slow down out of guilt just because you're ahead of everybody else. It's your emotional acceptance of this idea that determines whether you will apply it or not. And you got to figure out how you will justify this in your mind, since most of the people around you will not either understand it or accept it or apply it. All that said, text me. Get my daily motivation text every single day for free by texting me at my number 305-384-6894. Then get your free issue of my Bulletproof Bulletin, which is my monthly magazine I send out every month. To everyone who is a subscriber to that, I'll send you your first issue free by going to bulletproofbulletin.com. And number 3, when you are ready, and I think you are, to start working with me directly on your strategy, on your accountability, and on your execution. Join me in my mastermind. It's called the Bulletproof Mastermind. I do a live training call every single week where I take questions. We have open discussion, make sure everyone's being held accountable, actually working towards serious, real goals, and you can network with other like-minded individuals who are taking their games to the next level the same way that you are. All of that information is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. All of those links are down below in the show notes. Work on your game. Dre all day.